If you're about to register a domain name, then stop right there, because I'm about to save you months of work that you could potentially be putting into working on a domain name that later on you realize is just crap. And I've done that mistake many times, where under the influence of the so-called shiny object syndrome, I would just go and buy loads of different domain names that I thought were cool, only to realize in the future that they are just useless, they're not worth my time, they're not worth working on, they're not worth building a website around. But this allowed me to gather enough experience to come up with these 10 principles that I'll be sharing in this video, which helped me to only register quality domain names that are worth buying and that will just make you feel good. So without further ado, let's move to the first principle. And the first principle is to always go with .com. Now, I know that there are all those cool TLDs like .digital, .international, .club, and all that cool stuff. I get that. But the thing is, only people in this small tech bubble are aware of this, and the majority of the internet, they're not even used to those sites. They're used to .com, .net, .org. And the thing is, all the big brands like Facebook, TikTok, Amazon, Google, all those giants, they just use .com. And what this does is it creates like a crazy amount of trust around the .com extension as opposed to all the other ones. So when you have a website that you really care about and it's your long-term project, when you pick .com, you only give yourself an edge because you take advantage of that trustworthiness .com domains have developed over time. And I know that it's not easy to find a .com domain available because they are the most premium extension that you can get, but trust me, spending a little bit more time and trying to come up with a brand name that's still available as a .com will pay off huge dividends in the future. So don't be lazy with this step and try to put a little extra time into finding a .com domain that you can work with. My second tip is to keep it short. A long domain name just does not look good and it's hard to memorize, it's hard to build a brand around. And there is a reason why all these huge companies usually have a short name, like Google, like Amazon that you mentioned before, like TikTok, Spotify, YouTube. Like you can see, the tendency is to keep it short. And there is a reason for it, is because it's easier to memorize a short brandable word rather than a domain name that's made up from multiple words. And again, if you're building a project that you care about, it makes sense to put extra time and come up with something short and sweet. My next tip is to keep your domain name brandable. Brands dominate the market these days. If you can just stick a logo on a random t-shirt, suddenly that t-shirt's value can increase 10 times just because it's got some brand's logo. And same goes for websites. If you create a domain name that's brandable, it allows you to build more trust with people. It allows you to build a stronger connection because people want brands. They want to buy from brands. They want to get influenced by brands. And this is just one of those things that you should take advantage of when you're registering a new domain name. My next tip is to avoid hyphens, avoid dates, and avoid numbers in your domain, just because it makes it look spammy and it does not make your domain look professional. And I know it can be tempting to put like 2020 or something like that into your domain name, and oftentimes it makes it possible to register a domain that otherwise would have been taken if you did not put that number in there. But trust me, in the long run, you will prefer to not have any numbers in your domain name. My next tip is to make your domain name easy to type. So you don't want to have a tongue breaker as your domain name, and you want to make sure that it's something that's easy to type, easy to pronounce, that people can remember it. This allows you to build your brand easier, to get more people to return to your website because it's easy to type it in Google. And that way you make the journey back to your website so much easier. My next tip is to make your domain name easy to pronounce so that people can share it easier with others through voice messages, through mentioning in a video, or just by having a casual conversation. It's so much easier to recommend a domain name that's just easy to pronounce rather than a tongue breaker. So definitely take advantage of that fact. Tip number 7 is to make it easy to remember, but if you follow the previous 6 steps, at this point your domain should already be easy to remember, because if you make it easy to type, if you make it easy to pronounce, if you make it brandable, if you make it a .com, at this point your domain name is probably easy to remember. Think about something like PayPal or I don't know, gymkit.com or something like this, where it's very easy to remember, as opposed to something like mycookingblog.net. It's just very generic. So you want something that people will just remember and they'll return back to your website as a result. Tip number 8 is to use a domain name generator if you're stuck. You can use websites like brandroot.com, which allow you to browse through thousands of different domain name ideas, and you don't even have to buy any of their premium domain names. You can just get inspiration to see what are the ideas that other people came up with, and hopefully that stimulates your brain to come up with your own cool domain name that is still available as a .com. Tip number 9 is to please check for trademarks. I know this is very unlikely that you'd register something that's already been taken, but it is possible. And I personally know one brand that registered a domain name as a news website to only get a legal document later on from a huge company that had a trademark on part of their domain name, and they just had to migrate the entire website onto a new domain name, which is just a huge amount of work that you can save yourself if you just check for a trademark online. The easiest way to check for a trademark is to just use this website and use their database for trademarks and just type in your name and make sure that there is no other brand already claiming rights to that name. And my last tip is to make sure that the domain name that you buy does not limit you in the future. So for example, if you're starting a food blog and you call yourself italiancook.com, this way, if later on in the future you want to post something about Spanish cuisine, it kind of limits you just from your domain name. You can still do it, but it would be so much better if you called yourself something like globalchief.com or something that gives you more flexibility if you want to expand in the future. So to summarize, let's go for these 10 tips. Go with .com, keep it short, keep it brandable, avoid hyphens, dates and numbers, make it easy to type, make it easy to pronounce, and make it easy to remember. If you're stuck, use a domain name generator like brandroot.com, check for trademarks, and make sure that the domain name you register does not limit you in the future. And if you still haven't registered your domain name but you're about to do it, I highly recommend to go with SiteGround, which you can use using the link in the description. And these guys offer a free SSL certificate with your domain name, which makes your domain look more professional. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel, leave a like and comment in the video down below what is the domain name that you just bought.